So it just so happened I was diagnosed with a heart condition, a mitral valve prolapse and tachycardia. And I went in for my yearly checkup. It wasn't long after this, and he said it's healed. I'm like, wait a minute, I've had it since I was 16, right? And they said I was going to replace that valve. And he said, it's not there anymore. And I thought, and it took me back to that moment where I gave him my whole heart. He said he was going to make it whole. It not only emotionally healed me, but my physical body started to reflect these amazing things. And I was like, okay, if I wasn't a believer then, I sure was now. And, it helped me to forgive myself, forgive my mom. That was tough, going back and making sure she knew I forgave her. She was doing the best she could. And, it began to really make that shift, in my heart to realize that time doesn't heal, but love does. Having the love of, I had been on my own my whole life, and I always whined about not having parents. And God said, I saw you picking the daisies when you were little, doing the he loves me not. And I saw you fix it so that it would end with he loves me. The things that we do. And I said, okay, well then, and if you're the king of kings, then I'm a princess. And I created my email as Princess Sunny because of it. Simple little things I had to surround myself to make sure that I changed that belief and that mindset about myself. I actually even have a ring. It's a crown that I wear, and it says forgiven. So when there are days where I'm struggling, even, where I feel like I'm starting to remember, and kind of, I'm an overthinker. So I will dwell on some of that stuff. And then I just remind myself who I am, and change my mindset. And when I say, so I was thinking, oh, I'm terrible. I was thinking today, I'm like, oh, I don't like my voice. I know, it's so weird, right? You think about your own voice.
Right.
And so I've made this a practice over the last several years is, if you can't say it in Jesus' name, like I hate my voice in Jesus' name, or I am a terrible person in Jesus' name, it doesn't jive. So there's not truth in it. So that helps me to know the truth about myself. I am an overcomer. I have a voice. Realizing how far your testimony can go and what it does to the hearts that hear it, that are stuck and hurting, broken, have been through things and don't know how to get through that. Thinking and knowing that there's so many other people. It looks so perfect on the outside. When I meet people now, they have no idea where I've come from. But I don't want to forget either, because even though those things shouldn't have happened to me, it made me who I am, and now I love me. And and it'd be an injustice if we didn't share our stories and share that overcoming, because I waited too long thinking that, and carrying a blanket of shame, honestly, from what other people put on me by what they did. I thought, oh, I put myself in this situation, or I put myself here. I even had my mom didn't want anybody to find out, so she was giving me drugs so that I couldn't cry. It was so crazy because I was only, I mean, I had to be like 12, maybe 13, but trying to hide things. And there's nothing more than, when you hide things, boy, they can fester. But when you give them to the light or tell someone, boy, it opens up. And I thought, wait, I have a choice. I don't have to do that. I'm going to cry if I want. So I'd be at school crying. I swear I cried for like 2 years. But going through surrendering and knowing something's not right if you're crying. So listening to your body, but it was healing. That allowed me to be able to, I realized when I can talk about myself and what I went through, there's healing there.
Yeah.
And the more that I share, I started going into the juvenile detention centers and asking these kids, I'm like, okay, you're in here, what's up? And they're like, what do you know? Right? I'm like, hold on, let me just tell you. um, And I said, you could change your statistic right now. I became a statistic for the good side. I ended up going back to school in 2015, finished that degree I started. Now, they wouldn't take what I had, so I had to start over. It took me 5 years as a single mom of 3 teenagers. And I finally finished, and they're like, are you going to graduation? I'm like, you better believe it. I got a class ring. I did all of that. It's never too late to have that happy childhood. And I'm like, no, I feel like I'm right out of college, right? And starting my life. And I began to, do the suicide prevention, become a youth leader. And I realized how different it was changing their futures. These kids, I mean, it takes one person to believe in you. And and when you're that desperate and ready to listen to anything at the bottom, you can be that voice of change by sharing. Someone said, oh, you're throwing yourself under the bus. I'm like, well, it is my junk, but without suffering, there's no glory. Without the battle, there's no victory. And we have this stuff all the time, whether it's even a coworker that we're battling with. It's not too small. Things are traumatic. They affect us. They affect our mindset. But to know who you are and be able to walk in confidence and say, I am beautiful. I do have a voice. I have something to share. Um, and that people, unlearning was one of the biggest things. I had to introduce myself to me. I had to take a look and see why I thought the way I did, and where it came from. I believed police were bad, right? My parents told me that so that I wouldn't tell anyone. So I never told anyone. So I stayed on the street. No one ever found out. Thank goodness I didn't end up in jail. I didn't do anything too terrible. But unlearning that and telling someone that's living in that to give them direction and kind of take when Sabrina and I were talking not long ago and we're talking about just our story. I had a vision of my solo book that I'm writing right now, and it was me reaching in the darkness, grabbing the hand of someone and had a flashlight, and I'm like, wait, I've been here. I know the way out. Let's go. Like, come on, hold my hand, and taking the light to find the way out. This is the thing that we can do when we overcome. We share that navigation, and then forgiveness and resetting our thinking, taking I call it my God resume. I have failed marriages and I have, abuse and rape. And I was a bully to the bullies in school. I had a thing for injustice. I had to go back and ask forgiveness from those that I felt like I bullied, even though I felt like they were doing the wrong thing. I still had to, you think about, boy, when God heals those things. And then we went to the reunion together. I mean, there's so many opportunities to walk out, this growth and development and help other people to see your God resume, even though it's all your junk. It is giving you the right to speak into someone's life. They're like, how do you know? Or what do you, well, I've walked through this, or you have wisdom. So many people don't realize all the stuff they've gone through. They have wisdom. And when you share that, it exposes, the plans of what I feel is destruction from the enemy trying to break us down and get us to not use our gifts. I was silenced my whole life, told to be quiet, told I talked too much, or I didn't have anything to say, so just be quiet over there. And so I was silenced my whole life. So I had a hard time finding my voice. And, as I graduated and was celebrating this new position, and I posted on LinkedIn, and I had a beautiful woman reach out to me and say, hey, would you write a chapter in this book? And I thought, okay. And I thought, well, that's kind of cool, right? I was writing my own book. I'm like, this is a great opportunity. And I just knew they had 6 months to write, and I had about a week. So I'm like, what would I have a problem saying no, because I feel like I could miss an opportunity for someone to be healed or to be free. So I'm like, yes, I'll do it. And So there's us that are, the fear. And so I said yes. And this was just published. There was 10 authors, 10 women. I got to be one of them. So blessed. And I wrote it, in a day. I sat there and I thought, okay, God, you said I'm an ambassador for you. You've been my father. You've been my parent my whole life. You've known me. You've poured into me. You've healed me. What if I'm sitting with these other people, these other women that are going to read this book? What conversation should I have that has to do with the title is Sanctuary, cultivating a safe space in sisterhood and rediscovering the power that unites us. And so I was sitting there and I realized, there was more healing that was coming. I thought, just when you think, and I know this is pride, I'm like, oh, I'm healed. I don't need any more stuff. We're such a work in progress, right? And so it was called Your Greatest Power Lies Within Your Heart's Desire. And, I had realized having failed marriages, people are like, I love being married. I believed in it. And I watched my mom. I said, I won't be like my mom. And I got to tell you, I had to go back, and that judgment like came on my own head. I realized, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have a couple failed marriages. And I went to my mom. I said, I am so sorry that I judged you for that. And she's like, I believed in marriage too. And I just wanted that for us to have a family, and learned her heart. I was like, oh, forgive me for the way that like I was judging you. And here I was saying, I'll never be like, and here I was, isn't that the way it happens? You become, you try so hard not to become something. And then I'm like, really? So I had written in here that, and that it's pretty much giving you permission. The things that we want, our dream is not foolish, unattainable or childish. I still love to be a wife, and I still, I want that in my future. And I've taken time to heal, spend time with God, heal those parts. And so, everyone's like, oh, just be with God, just be single, just do this. And I'm like, well, but I still love that commitment, that covenant. Like that is so precious. And there's a peace about it. And so when I wrote in here, I'll just share this real quick. So I said, as a woman, I desire intimacy. I think we all do, that belonging. I said, I don't want to be the last one picked on the playground, if you know what I mean. But what we dreamed about as little girls and where we are now, we have long forgotten something very precious within our hearts. It's worth taking the time to rediscover your heart's longing for that thing you felt in your chest when you were dreaming, that fire that was blazing just under the surface and your heart racing, that now is down to a faint beat and a small glowing light barely at a smolder. It said you have permission to remember and resurrect it because it's yours. Those little dreams that we had. I said the seed of abandonment was planted in my heart when I was a toddler, left to raise myself by a mom that worked many jobs in a tornado of abusive babysitters, destroying my innocence and trust, and one after another alcoholic stepfathers coming and going, all watering the seed, cultivating its destructive behavior within me. I was left with a heart that believed people were replaceable. And I felt like I was not worth someone coming, the prince coming as Cinderella. That was my dream that I was resurrecting, that I wasn't worth fighting for, that someone wasn't coming to rescue me. And so, so my chapter specifically was, oh my gosh, resurrecting the childhood dream, whatever it was. And having permission that it's not foolish. We can still dream. We're allowed to dream, and have permission to want those things that seem silly or seem unattainable, but it's ours.